Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thanks so much for listening. In this episode, we continue our discussion on genuine leadership. A genuine leader displays influential behavior in a manner that motivates and inspires others to improve their lives. It's just as simple as that. You motivate others, you inspire others with your words, with your actions. Conversely, disingenuine leadership is all about impressing people. It's based on impressionistic living. It's about presentation and appearance. As a result, your reach is limited. Genuine leaders expand beyond the parameters of glowing rhetoric and impressive dress and status and standing. The most influential man I ever met never made it past grade 3. He was a simple line cook at a university, California Maritime Academy in Northern California. It was my father, largely unknown outside his hometown. However, his words are impacting people all over the world. How do you explain the irony of that? One word: influence. My father taught me by example. He taught me that growing my influence will become the foundation for effectively leading people. I first must lead myself in order to inspire others, and it's all based on growing my influence every single day. Author John Maxwell said it best: leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Your ability to influence people within the sphere of your periphery determines your impact. Thus, I believe influence is the trademark of leadership. Our degree of influence determines the power of our impact. Leaders who insist on making a nice showing, a nice impression, well, they fit well into this very shallow, superficial culture of ours, which does not place a great demand on substance. Ours is a society that values entertainment over instruction, speaking over silence, and looking good over being good. This is not genuine leadership. This is not authentic leadership. This is not impactful leadership. You may look good and sound presentable, but very few people will be inspired to achieve more and to be better. This is why it's important to construct a solid, common sense approach to the kind of leadership that makes a difference. Over the last several episodes, we've been discussing some of the basics, building blocks, if you will, that construct the foundation for genuine leadership. Building blocks that are essential to growing your influence every single day. Let's review. These building blocks include growth. Effective leaders must commit to growing every single day. If you're not growing, you're retarding. If you're not growing, you're not remaining stagnant, you're actually going backwards. That's why it's important to be a lifelong learner. I came across a recent study that basically argued this point. We tend to stop growing after formal education, whether it's high school or college. The reasons given? Oh, we're too busy now. We don't like learning. Or we already know it all. John Wooden said it best. You remember John Wooden, former head coach UCLA basketball. The Wizard of Westwood won 10 national championships. He said, live today as though you're going to die tomorrow and learn today as though you're going to live forever. He also said something else that challenges these excuses as to why we stop learning. He said, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. John Wooden. He's someone we ought study. His words we ought live by. You see, friends, I believe there's a positive correlationship between a leader who is resistant to learning and growing and a leader who is inefficient, who is ineffective, who's uninspiring, who is stuck in this well-manicured field of, well, this is the way we've always done things kind of world. And so I believe a commitment to growing every day is not only the first foundational building block, but it is essential to being the kind of leader who impacts every single day. The second building block to genuine leadership preparation. Each year, as I mentioned in an earlier podcast, my father, as part of his duties as a cook at California Maritime Academy, was charged to go on a training cruise. The cadets had to go on an annual cruise every year to get them sea ready, and it was a requirement of graduation. They're going into the maritime industry. These folks that graduate, these men and women, will be ocean liner captains and tugboat pilots. They'll crisscross the world on ships, and in order to prepare them, they had to be ready for all kinds of emergencies at sea. This was a 3-month cruise every year. It would start in January. The training ship Golden Bear would return back home in March. My father went on this cruise for 3 decades, right? The cruise ship, the Golden Bear, left in January, but my father began packing in December. Why would it take my dad a month to pack? I'm glad you asked. It didn't take him a month to pack. He intentionally used the time to purposely prepare for every scenario he could imagine at sea. Lesson: son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Did you hear what I said? My father used the month. He intentionally used the time to purposely prepare. My father was a man who was intentional. My father was a man who was purpose-driven, and his preparation was indicative of those two driving forces. Son, you'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I can hear him this day saying, if you don't plan and prepare, you're depending on luck. My father's leadership class did not include a module on luck, but preparation. That was driven into me even more so when I was the chaplain and life skills coach for Coach R.C. Slocum for the fighting Texas A&M football team. It was all about preparation. So friends, that's why I believe it is a major building block to growing effective leaders. It's my second in this series. You see, friends, great people do things that other people don't, and great leaders do things that other people won't. Influential leaders impact. The third building block that establishes the foundation for genuine leadership: disrupting one's thinking. Oh, this is important. Oh, baby. If you don't disrupt your thinking, you're going to cultivate for yourselves established paradigms and rituals and traditions that may be good, but they also may be limiting your growth potential. They may be stopping you from innovation, the kind of innovation that will cause you to go to the next level of greatness. Disrupting existing paradigms and patterns. That was what my father did every single day in a simple way. He constantly challenged his thinking, which led to a disruption of his routines. The results? My father was seldom stuck. I never saw him in a rut. He never wasted time. He did not expect other people to do for him what he was capable of doing himself. Simply stated, my father challenged his thinking and he remained sharp. My father's disruptive thinking helped me to lose weight. It motivated me. For years, I had poor eating habits and poor exercising habits. I ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and how dare you tell me otherwise, right? But watching my father for 40 years challenge the way that he would live by simply disrupting his thinking and disrupting his routines to be better, it really taught me a few things, right? I had fallen into this health trap where I was justifying my lifestyle. Although being 150 pounds more than I am today, around 350 back then, the medical profession considered me morbidly obese. But I learned how to hide. I hid behind tailored suits. I hid behind a busy schedule. I hid behind 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week on a stationary bike. And if you ask me, I hid behind these words: I'm fine. I'm okay. What I didn't realize was that my thinking had constructed a prison. Listen carefully. My thinking had constructed a prison built on a sandy foundation of justifications framed by feelings and emotions. If one were to ask me, Rick, how's your health? Even at 350 pounds, my answer would have been, well, I feel pretty good. I'm doing well. I'm fine. I look all right. The vagueness of my justifications should have been a sign of my foggy thinking. That foggy thinking convinced my mind that despite all evidence to the contrary, I was fine and nothing really needed to be changed. What changed? Everything changed when my thinking was disrupted with one thought. If I don't change my life, my wife will be a widow sooner than later. Friends, I want to tell you, that hit me like few other things. You know why? I know what it's like to be a widower. I lost my wife, Trina, when I was just 40 years old, nearly 30 years ago. And so I know what it's like to live in a home filled with grief and despair, to have all your hopes dashed and dreams shattered in just a matter of seconds. And I realized that in order for me to change, I had to disrupt existing patterns. It all began with disrupting my own thinking. Today, I'm 180 pounds, but it started with one thought. If I don't disrupt my thinking to the point that I change my routines, my wife will be a widow sooner than later. My children will be fatherless. My grandchildren will be grandfatherless sooner than later. Friends, listen carefully. Authentic, genuine leaders are never afraid to disrupt their own thinking. They're never afraid to think out the box, to consider what if, what might be, what can be. Friends, it'll keep you out of ruts. It'll stop you from being stuck. It's not about comfortable patterns or fixed routines. Leadership is about growing your influence every day, often during the seemingly mundane episodes of life. So at this juncture, the critical question becomes this: how you living? It's not only the title of this podcast series, it's a question I ask myself every single day. And it also represents a perfect segue to our next foundational leadership block. The fourth foundational block: righteous living. Friends, how we live determines whether there's a gold standard in our lives. Is there a high bar in your life? An exceptional quality to the way in which you live your life? Righteous living, doing things the right way all the time. That's the gold standard. Now, note, I did not say self-righteous living. You see, righteous living is doing things the right way all the time, right? There's a higher principle. There's a higher calling that's motivating you. Self-righteous living, you're motivated by self. You're motivated by flesh. You're motivated by ego. Self-righteous living, living to present, promote, and prop up self. No, we're not talking self-righteous living. We're talking about living the right way, righteous living. Let me give you the backstory that produces the question, how you living? And the very personal reason why I ask myself this very question every single day. Back in 1974, I was a freshman in college, and that was the first time I laid eyes on Trina. At that point, the most beautiful woman I'd ever met in my life. We met after a football game at a dance, and when she said yes, she would dance with me, I didn't realize that my life would change forever. Let me save several paragraphs. I got her phone number. I called. I invited her to go to a local ice cream shop. That's right. We walked to an ice cream shop. That led to another date. That led to another date. Trina and I started going together. A few years later, I got down on one knee and she said yes. We got married. We started our respective careers, both in Northern California. I was a television news reporter in Chico, California, KHSL Channel 12 television. Right up the hill, about 15 miles to the east of Chico, Trina began her career as a labor and delivery nurse at Feather River Hospital in Paradise, California. We would eventually have a couple of children. Nearly 10 years in television was followed by graduate school. Now by 1990, we're finished with graduate school, and I began on my career as a college professor. First stop, Fresno State. Fresno is in the central part of California. Well, guess what? Our fairy tale came to an abrupt halt when one day Trina found a lump in her left breast cancer. 6 years after that diagnosis, me and our two little boys walked up to Mommy's casket. Trina died in 1996, and it was a difficult, devastating time. I'll spare you the details, and I'll make the point that supports the backstory, that supports the reason why I ask myself every day, how you living? Friends, if a third grade dropout daddy taught me how to be a leader, a dying wife taught me how to be a man. She challenged me to live the right way. Let me explain. I vividly recall 2 days before Trina passed away. She was in pretty bad shape. She was sitting on the couch in our living room surrounded by pillows to ease the pain. I remember vividly I was behind her making some soup for lunch. I noticed out of the corner of my eye our then youngest son walk down the stairs with a wrinkled shirt. And this is what I heard Mommy say to our youngest son. "Andrew, Mama, not always gonna be here to help you." She was saying goodbye to our baby. I waited for Andrew to walk back up the stairs, and I went around and I sat next to Trina on the couch. And without her breathing labored, with hope in her eyes, with a clear voice, these were some of the last words from my first wife. "Ricky, it doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters to me most is how I live." Friends, there's so much to unpack from Trina's words, all supporting one fact. To the very end, Trina lived the right way. Let me just unpack a few of the leadership lessons from a simple statement. Doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters is how I live. Couple of lessons from a dying wife. Number one, she valued quality over quantity. It was about the quality of time. Her quantity was running out, but she valued quality. Not how much time, but how she spent her time. Powerful. Number two, Trina had hope, despite the fact that she was dying. Barring a miracle, she would be gone in 2 days. When I sat next to her and looked in her eyes, all I saw was hope. When I listened to her voice, all I heard was hope. Number three, Trina did the right thing. She did the right thing to the very end. Do y'all know that before she told me those powerful words, she said these words to me. She said, "You're not meant to be alone. You need a wife. And my children need a mommy." I don't know if I would have been able to say that, but Trina was committed. I'm not saying that she was perfect. I'm not saying that she was an angel, but every day she made an effort to live righteous. I'm talking about a leader who grows their influence, who makes an impact by doing the right thing all the time. Trina did the right thing in the most difficult situation. Fourth, Trina died with dignity. Why is this an important leadership trait? I learned years ago that how you exit a situation speaks volumes about your character. How you exit a situation, whether it's a divorce, whether it's leaving a job, whether it's departing this world, how you exit a situation speaks volumes about you, speaks volumes about your character. Trina exited this earth with dignity and with grace and with confidence in Christ. And fifth, her last words to me, "Ricky, live the right way." Her last instructions, "It doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters most is how I live. Friends, as I close, let me just share with you this. To be a genuine leader, we must commit to living in a way that reinforces a gold standard. The fourth building block that establishes the foundation for genuine leadership, righteous living. Living the right way. Aristotle would say it like this: you are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act. A third grade dropout, my daddy, would say it like this: how you do anything is how you do everything. A dying wife would say it like this: it doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters most is how I live. Living right, living by doing the right thing all the time, grows our influence in ways that you cannot even imagine. You see, righteous living develops our competence, reinforces good habits, solidifies that gold standard, builds greater character and integrity. Living the right way is powerful. It's profound. It's life-changing. In fact, I'd like to devote more time to righteous living. With your blessing and permission, let's pick up right here next time as I leave you with this nugget from my father. Son, how you do anything is how you do everything. I'm talking about a commitment to righteous living. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick, asking the most important question I can ask. How you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.